Hi, I'm attorney Andrew Thompson with the Thompson Law Office in Carmel, Indiana. Somewhere along the line, you may have heard the notion that it's a good idea to try to avoid probate, maybe to avoid probate at all costs. The concept of probate avoidance is closely tied to the creation of what's called a revocable living trust. A revocable living trust is an instrument you can create that will take and hold assets you have that otherwise would pass through the probate process and distribute them upon the death of the grantor, the person who sets up the trust and invests their own assets, and passes them on outside the probate process. This can be a tremendous advantage to someone who has a lot of probate assets and has a situation where they might be subject to litigation in probate. But let's talk about the reality of this situation. In most states, it's possible to create a probate estate even if you have a revocable living trust, even if you have no probate assets whatsoever. So for example, if a person only holds life insurance, retirement accounts, and joint assets such as jointly owned real estate, they normally would have no probate assets and therefore no probate estate. But if someone wants to contest the distribution of those assets after the person dies, the only way to do that is to seek relief through the probate court. The person has now died, and so it's necessary to consider where their assets are, to have an administrator and executor involved and kind of collect and inventory the assets and determine what's there. So absolute probate avoidance is a virtual impossibility. It's not impossible, but it's not always likely either. So on the one hand, probate avoidance may be difficult to accomplish no matter what you do. Secondly, it may become more difficult because of the way people manage their lifestyles. People move assets around from one retirement account to another, inside of retirement accounts to pulling them out to other personal assets that then become probate assets. If you have a revocable living trust, you have to carefully title your bank accounts, your cars, your real estate, everything you have in the trust, or otherwise the trust isn't holding the asset and those assets are still subject to probate. Is this a tremendous advantage to you? Well, it depends. To some people it really is. But the point is that unless you use a revocable living trust properly, you won't entirely avoid probate no matter what else you do. Okay, so that's the second issue. The third issue is that probate may or may not be the worst thing that could happen to your family and to your estate. A lot of post-death issues that happen among families that are very high conflict in nature actually happen outside of probate court. You may have experienced this in your own family, and the examples are so wide and divergent, I'm not going to cite them here. But the reality is that probate court may not be the worst thing you'll ever face in your life. Don't get me wrong, any kind of probate battle, probate litigation is expensive, challenging, and it takes a heavy emotional toll on the people involved. But it's not necessarily the worst thing that can happen to you. Now, having said all that, this video, is not designed to knock the revocable living trust. In fact, we set them up rather frequently for people of a certain age and a certain lifestyle. If you're post-retirement, you have a pretty static lifestyle, you have investable assets in a few accounts, and most of it's liquid, then it's probably a really good idea to have a revocable living trust. It gives you certain advantages even during your lifetime that you wouldn't have without the living trust, such as in the event of incapacity, if there is a competent trustee acting in your place, you can make decisions without even having a power of attorney in effect. Of course, we always recommend that you do have powers of attorney, but even without them, with a properly structured revocable living trust, you're okay. So there are advantages to the revocable living trust. The bottom line on what I'm saying here today is when it comes to wills, trust, other issues of estate planning and probate, consult with a competent attorney. Get the right advice for you and your situation. My name's Andrew Thompson. I'm an attorney in Carmel, Indiana with the Thompson Law Office. You can find us by calling us at area code 317-564-4600. 888-781-4976 or find us on the web at www.thompsonlaw-in.com.